if you're allergic to any of its ingredients.
And it's a relief knowing I can treat my TD while still treating my mental health. My doctor also said that in an Ingrezza clinical study in TD, psychiatric conditions remain stable.
Ingrezza may cause serious side effects, including sleepiness. Don't drive, operate heavy machinery, or do other dangerous activities until you know how Ingrezza affects you. Other serious side effects include potential heart rhythm problems and abnormal movements.
Now that treatment has reduced my TD movements, it's nice people focus more on me.
Learn more at Ingrezza.com. That's INGREZZA.com. Ask your doctor about the #1 most prescribed treatment proven for TD, Ingrezza.
The best of Sean Hannity is on now. Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Our top non-governmental goal must be reclaiming the House in 2024, and I'm committed to making sure that that happens.
He too would, I think, be doing service to America by stepping aside and letting Democrats choose a second-generation leader.
Turbocharge the emerging global clean energy economy. I was reading your quote. Sorry.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution. We're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Right, hour 2, Sean Hannity Show. Toll free, it's 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. You know, all of the last 2 years, I've been talking about the emergence of this new axis of evil, and that is the relationships, the partnerships with China and Russia and Iran. And what's fascinating now is all three countries now are undergoing social unrest. In the case of Russia, it's, Vladimir Putin trying to draft or conscript everybody, any warm body, into fighting this insane war that he's not been doing well in Ukraine. In Iran, it is the death of a woman in prison that has sparked all around the country deep unrest within the country of Iran, unlike anything we've seen, maybe even since 1979, although we're not getting enough video out of it. We're watching China, in the middle of these draconian COVID lockdowns. You have Chinese citizens now taken to the streets, and it's gotten so interesting that they actually want to get rid of President Xi, and where this ends, I don't know, but it's certainly fascinating to watch. Will that eventually happen? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's definitely worth paying attention to. So as a result, all three have been. We see Putin now is in hiding, afraid that he's going to get assassinated. President Xi is experiencing something he never had to deal with before, and calls for him to be removed from office, and calls for the Ayatollahs and the mullahs to be removed from office. So it's getting pretty interesting here. Anyway, so Anthony Fauci, let me go to the COVID aspect of this virus. He said on the COVID lab theory, I have a completely open mind. That's not what he has been saying all along. Just like when he said, if you get the vaccine, you'll never get COVID. Okay, I know people that got the vaccine and not one booster, but 2 boosters and 3 boosters. I don't know. How many boosters are they up to now, Linda? Because I never got a booster. Yeah, whatever. I'm about to go to number 5. Great. I know more people that got boosted and 3 weeks later end up with COVID. It's unreal. And I'll never trust these people again. They don't deserve our trust. And we do know that the NIH did give money to what's known as the Eco Alliance, that did funnel that money to the Wuhan, China virology lab. They knew that gain-of-function research took place in that lab, and they knew that coronavirus research took place in that lab. And that's why those up there in early, 2020, Anthony Fauci with the top ranking people within the NIH, they gave the grant to the Eco Alliance, which gave the money to the Wuhan virology lab. There was a flurry of activity. of them going back and forth, because they knew damn well that some of their money may have gone to fund the research into the origins of this virus. Now, Fauci is saying publicly he doesn't care if he gets called to Congress. He's fine with that, no problem. I have a completely open mind. And then he says it's Donald Trump's fault that the Chinese weren't cooperative in the COVID probe. No, the Chinese government weren't going to let anybody go in there and find out what really had happened here. But it's interesting as China is now tightening security all over the country because of the protests against these draconian shutdown measures. So, how this ultimately plays out, I don't know. I know on Monday, earlier today, police were stopping and searching people at sites of weekend protests in Shanghai and Beijing after crowds there and other cities were demonstrating these draconian shutdowns. And you have from the streets of many Chinese cities, dozens of university campuses, protesters now made, one show of civil disobedience after another, and many now want President Xi overthrown. Now, do they have the power to do so? Not really. You can't win a revolution with a slingshot, and the same would be applicable to Iran, and the same would be applicable to Russia. The only thing that could happen in Russia is somebody that wants power from Putin could probably take out Putin if they're in close proximity to him, which probably explains away why he has this high level of paranoia. Anyway, joining us to weigh in, especially on the issue of China, is Gordon Chang. He is the author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Sean, and thank you so much.
I'd argue militarily that the communist Chinese have been out-militarizing us now for a longer period of time than anyone really wants to acknowledge. I think they have been building and building up the toughest military to compete with us as they possibly can. We've seen that with their hypersonic missiles. They keep saber rattling when it comes to Taiwan, or what they call reunification with Taiwan. And then, of course, no information regarding the origins of COVID-19. Where do you think this all stands?
Well, you're absolutely right about that. And Xi Jinping is not only engaged in the fastest military buildup since the Second World War, he's also mobilizing Chinese civilian society. A Chinese entrepreneur who was making civilian products in the medical sector told me that Communist Party cadres actually came to him and ordered that he switch production so that he could be making things for the Chinese military. And he said that other entrepreneurs had received similar directives from the Communist Party, and that the Communist Party was actually operating a number of factories because factory owners didn't want to stick around, so they abandoned their properties. So we see that it's the militarization of the entire Chinese society, and President Biden does not want to recognize that. There is no sense of urgency in the White House, and there's no sense of urgency in the Pentagon either, especially among the 3 and 4 stars. So this is a very dangerous situation for us.
I think it's dangerous also for the world. Do you think there's any possibility at all, any scenario under which you can see President Xi ceding power or being taken out?
Yes, I actually do. And the reason is that and I agree with you, the protesters don't even have slingshots. But we do know that there is widespread dissatisfaction, anger, resentment against Xi Jinping. And it was extraordinary over the weekend that you had protesters in major Chinese cities calling for him to leave and calling for the Communist Party to be overthrown. We haven't heard rhetoric like that in 3 decades. And even in the Tiananmen...
What would be the latest example? Tiananmen Square?
Tiananmen Square, but very few of the Tiananmen protesters called for the destruction of the Communist Party. They wanted the party to liberalize so that there would be more room for freedom of expression. You'd have to go back to 1949 to find a similar situation. That's when the communists took over China. And they took over China from a superior Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist party. And the reason that the communists were able to prevail against a much stronger foe is because the nationalists had lost people's hearts, as a famous Chinese historian has put it. So really what we're talking about is today, the Communist Party has lost hearts. They can coerce people, they can intimidate people, they can put people in jail. But eventually, I think the Chinese people are going to get rid of Xi Jinping.
That's going to be fascinating to see how that unfolds. What do we know about the military now? We know that about unfair trade practices. We know about intellectual property theft. We know that we very stupidly have been too reliant on China for key aspects of our manufacturing. For example, these chips that are also important for cars, which is one of the reasons that manufacturers can't build the cars to the extent that demand is calling for it. But we've allowed that to happen. How intertwined are we with them, and are we making any progress detangling our economic futures with them?
Well, we're making a fair amount of progress. President Trump in 2018 imposed those tariffs. Those were for the remedy of theft of intellectual property. But what those Section 301 tariffs also did was convince manufacturers that they had to diversify their sources of supply. In other words, diversifying out of China. And recently, and this goes back, let's say, 6 months or so, we have seen a lot of companies move to Mexico, move out of China because they're really concerned. They're concerned about the COVID lockdowns. They're concerned about Xi Jinping causing troubles with the neighbors and with the United States. And they're concerned that the manufacturing environment in China just is generally not good. So we're seeing some disentangling. Now, President Biden has actually supported Communist Party in the sense of